Okay, so I'm very happy to welcome you to our presentation about social compass and how we can use that for more well-being and better collaboration inside the teams. What I would like to do today, I would like to talk about how and what framework we are using to find actionable information from your communication, from the words that you are using, the way how you interact with each other. And we also have tools, but I'm not going to talk about those today in great detail, looking at expression of your face and the way how you move your body. I will only mention those briefly. And how we are using AI and deep learning to find personas that describe your strengths and your weaknesses. And we have developed a framework where we group your personality traits into Bs, Ands, and Liches. And I will talk about that a little bit later on. I will also talk about how we use tribal leaders that will define deep learning context, and then it basically will, so we have, for example, an archetypical B that might be a Nobel Prize winner. We have somebody who is very hardworking, like an and those are our blueprints, and we will measure how similar you are to those. Then I will make a demo how you can use a system to automatically look at other people in LinkedIn and see how much of a B, and, or Lich they are. How you can look at anybody inside your WhatsApp to find those properties, and how you can use your mailbox and also Microsoft Teams, but I'm not going to demo that, to come up with similar conclusions. And then I will wrap up with what the four main use cases for the social compass are. So this all is grounded on very deep science. So it's all described in many books. The most recent one is called Happy Metrics. It's basically the science of measuring happiness. And there is about 300 papers that our team has written over the last 20 years at MIT that have researched that. We also have many publications in the press. We also have 3 patent applications for those sort of things. So what I'm showing you here is extremely well grounded in theory. It's extremely solid. So what are we measuring? We are measuring what is called Herma, which is 5 categories that if you are scoring high in those 5, you will be a happy person. And the first one is the positivity. If you have a positive attitude, good for you. That's already the first thing towards happiness. And you can measure that basically from my smile. And there is different ways of smiling. You can measure that from my words. And the trick really is that just sprinkling positive smileys and positive words is not enough, but thanks to systems like ChatGPT, our algorithm is now much more sophisticated. The second property is how engaged you are. This comes from the concept of flow that the psychologist has developed by the name of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, unpronounceable name. And that we can measure from the way how you interact with other people in your email, or by looking at them, if you measure your facial expression, your gaze, how you look at somebody. The next one is relationship, and that's basically what our team has been studying for 20 years. That science is called social network analysis. And having many strong relationships, that's a key ingredient for happiness. The next one is meaning. You need to have meaning in what you do. And we have figured out the way of measuring that too. The last one is recognition, or as it has been called by the inventors, which are the positive psychologists Martin Seligman and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, achievement, so it gets a nice acronym Herma. And we can measure that from your words by using deep learning. We can measure that face-to-face by measuring your facial expression, the pitch of your voice, and again, your words. We can measure your engagement by measuring how much you are synchronized, and that can be measured automatically from email or from WhatsApp. That means if my son sends me a WhatsApp and I respond very quickly, we are entangled. Relationships, that means how many contacts do I have? And are they actually responding to me? The meaning, we have developed one metric which measures the influence in my team by looking at words. That means if I invent a new concept, I make up a new word like Herma or happy metrics or collaborative innovation networks or swarm creativity, the more others pick that up, the more influence I have. And if I'm in such a network where people are using their own vocabulary, we say we have a community that gives me meaning because they are using unusual words. And then achievement, and that basically measures how quickly others respond to me. The faster they do, the more they respect me. And then we can also measure things, for example, if they look at me, we have a machine learning model that will measure awe in the face. So we have a very automated way of measuring all those PERMA criteria, and that helps us. This is basically the tool, the social compass that I'm going to present. How much you are, or I am, a bee, collaborative and caring and fair. How much I'm a hardworking ant, but ants are also highly competitive, which might be good, but sometimes it can also be painful or dangerous. And then we have the leech who just cares about themselves. We have a second categorization, which helps to have more fine-grained tribes. We measure how much somebody is a fatherlander, which is an ultra-patriot. And if we define our tribal leaders, Donald Trump comes to mind here, how much somebody is a tree hugger. That means how much somebody speaks like Greta Thunberg, how much somebody is a spiritualist, how much somebody would speak like Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, or the Pope, and how much somebody is a nerd, which means how much would they speak like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. And we have trained our machine learning system with the words of those famous people, and then we look how much you speak like them. Now I will stop and I will demo I think I have now to share the full screen. The system, let me first demo the LinkedIn. So here I have my own LinkedIn, and just using the social compass, I can now look at my properties. So let's see. Okay. So this is just based on the words I'm using on LinkedIn, and obviously I'm a very geeky bee. I'm a little bit of an ant, and I have also to make sure that some money comes in Galaxy Advisors. So I have some lychee properties. And it seems I'm showing a little bit of fear and happiness. This one, I think, is not so surprising. Being an entrepreneur, you are probably a mix of capitalism and liberalism. I'm also quite spiritual, I think. Of course, I'm a big nerd, and I'm not really a fatherlander, I think. So this is now myself, but I can do that for anybody else I want. So, for example, I can do that for my colleague Beat. And then we will see Beat's tribal personality. And let's see what we get. So he's also a spiritual being, and then he is also being in sales. He has to have those, and he sells nerdy stuff. So nerdy leech, a little bit, traveling. He speaks more like journalist and politician. He's also not a fatherlander at all, and also a big nerd, but also a tree hugger. But now we can also look at anybody else. We can look at the CEO, the old and new CEO of UBS, and just analyze him right away. And not surprising, that's where he has to put his focus. But he seems also to be a mix, quite nerdish and not the big fatherlander, into fitness and so on. Or we can also look at Bill Gates and look at his profile, and he will probably be a big B, I would assume, because he's very much into creative stuff. But we'll see. Yes, that's what I thought. No, and he doesn't have to work the day-to-day anymore. He can just enjoy himself and be a creative spiritual being. Very nice, good for him, lucky him. So this is how LinkedIn works. Now we can do the same for WhatsApp. And I can either, again, just from the outside, look at anybody in my WhatsApp. For example, I can look at my son and look what his properties are. He's a doctor, by the way. And so we will see what comes out. Well, let's try again. So he's an ant. Doctors are not supposed to be creative. You want them to be reliable and predictable. So, and then we can look at my sister, for example, and she's a veterinarian. So a little bit of a bee, but also mostly an ant. Or we can look at my friend Deborah. She runs a vegan, she's a vegan, and B, is she running an animal shelter? And let's see what comes out here. I think I have to do it like that. Yes. No, she has some fear because she's worried about her animals, I guess, but she's a big bee. And then I guess she's also worried about bringing in money for her shelter. And the tree hugger, I think that makes sense. And the vegan, she is a vegan, that's very true. So this is just looking at, and you could do that from the outside. Just look at any person in your WhatsApp. You have to do that from within the browser. It doesn't work if you go into the WhatsApp app. Or I can also look at my entire WhatsApp, and then it will tell me who I am. It will tell me my Herma. So it seems I'm getting recognition here, or I trained people to answer quickly to me. I think I could use some more meaning. My relationships seem to be fine. The engagement is okay, and the positivity is also okay. And here we see the people with whom I'm exchanging the most WhatsApps, which are the most entangled with me, and that makes all sense. You can also look at the threads when I'm talking, with whom am I talking. And it will compute my personality based on the words I'm using and the way how I, so I don't care too much about power. I'm a very caring person. I'm happy to find that out. And you can, again, no, that should not be, look at the threads over time. And then in the end, we can look at the network. And we can also look at, so this is me in the center, and this is the people with whom I exchange the most WhatsApp, at the contacts and their personality. but I will demo that on my email because that's sort of the last system I want to show. So here I have taken my mailbox. So you see my email personality and my WhatsApp personality is not 100% the same, although I think the spiritual being is still quite dominant. My network in email, because I'm a big email user, will be much bigger. And now I can look at personality of others if they have exchanged enough email with me. And so that means we need an interaction and we also need words. So I can, for example, look at my colleague Alexandra, and I can look at her personality. She's also a caring person, although not smart. And she's more conscientious here. We can also look at her tribe. She's a big bee and tree hugger. But this is a very comfortable way. And I can now look at another person, for example, my colleague Andrea. I can look at his tribes. I can look at his personality. If it works, yes, it does. And then get some insights about how to talk with him. Now, the last thing I would like to show you is how we can create teams. So here I have a role model. And in this example, I took my colleague Joao Gabriel as my role model, and I say, I want to find others which are like him. And I will go the next step. I already chose Andrea as the team member. I chose my colleague Francesca. I call another colleague, Joao Marcos and Conrad. I can now add somebody else, for example, Luis is another big geek, he's a student. And then I can confirm that. And now I can look at the team network. Oh. Let me open it again and hope that it comes. Yes, now it's here. So Luis is not connected with the others. That's sort of an interesting insight. I could also look at the tribes that team is having. So it's a very happy team. I'm very happy to see that. And they are also, not surprisingly, it's almost exclusively bees. It's a very big bee team. So that's basically the system I wanted to show you. And now let me go back to the presentation and just show you briefly how the system works. So we have the front end on the phone or in the browser. And then you have a backend where the anonymized data is processed. This is very similar to Google Maps, which also takes your coordinates and then runs on the server because the phone is not powerful enough. We also have another tool called the Happy Meter, which takes my body signals and then goes from the smartwatch to the phone and from the phone to the cloud. So that's how it works. We have another tool called Griffin, which is the power user version of Social Compass. It's the same engine in the background that is running, but this takes much more training, and you need to be an HR analytics or social network analysis expert to make use of it. So this is not the topic of today. I would just like to finish by wrapping up the 4 different areas where I think we can address well-being, individual well-being and corporate well-being. On the individual level, the I, it's basically about measuring compassion and happiness. And we do that with the social compass. We can also look at the community. We can combine the data from the individual social compasses. If people opt in, we can get combined networks. And then we also have the body. We can look at how you are doing, how well is your body doing, how happy is your soul by taking signals from the happy meter, from the smartwatch. And then the craziest product we have, this is we call it the Greensense plant spiker box. It basically measures the brain waves of the plant, so to speak. It measures how people interact with the plants and measures from those signals your emotions. And the goal is to get a better, greener environment. So I think that concludes my presentation. If you have questions, I will be very happy to answer them. And you can also contact my colleague, Beat Meyer. So I think with that, I will stop the recording also. And now we can just talk about